And so if you open it up to that first page there, it starts with the top 5 reasons to love these vibrant coastal communities. And really, this is what we share with out of town buyers that are considering Pensacola as an area to call home. And we're really seeing a lot of that right now. A lot of people moving here from California and New York and all over the country. I think that, especially with COVID, people are able to now work mobily, whereas before they may not have been able to. And so they're looking for communities where the cost of living is lower. And like we talked to a guy last week that he actually was a good friend of mine growing up, but he lives in La Jolla, California now, and he's renting out there 1,000 square feet and paying over $4,000. And here,
Gross.
with $4,000, you could be a month, you could be in quite a house. So I really think it's a great time. I think it's a great time to buy here or to move here, given the low interest rates right now. Interest rates are historically low, and just kind of the momentum that we have as a city. I know, it's really been improving the past 10 years or so. Kind of started with Palafox in Maine, and then the Wahoo Stadium, but the other big infrastructure developments and amenities that are kind of in the works right now for our city, I feel like are just going to continue to build up our real estate market and increase property values and make people want to live here because it's a great place to live. It's a fun place. One of those things is the Hollis Williams Greenway project that's going to kind of connect the East Side neighborhood and the Long Hollow neighborhood. It's the area under Interstate 110 that kind of leads into our downtown and into our waterfront. That whole area is going to be developed and become a walkable, bikeable, skatable corridor that really kind of connects those two neighborhoods and then leads into our downtown. So I think surrounding that area really could be a good opportunity zone. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with the West Main master plan, and then the plan that the Studers paid for with Scape to really figure out how we can access our waterfront downtown. So personally, I just feel like with the amount of projects, transformative projects that we have in the works here in Pensacola, nationally the real estate market is great, but certainly, we're going to see a correction at some point. But I believe that, we'll be somewhat insulated from whatever happens nationally just because of these great projects that we have in the works. And just what an awesome place this is to live. So anyways, this is kind of where we start with out of town buyers to kind of, tell them about the area, the innovation and education. You guys can see the photo from IHMC, the outdoor experience, that looks like Sean Mullins at one of our local springs. Obviously incredible fishing. You could fish. If you're into hunting, you could go drive an hour or a couple hours and hunt in the same day. Some of you guys like Chris Neal are probably into that. I really just think our area offers so much that we really take for granted. I know I grew up here my whole life, and I really took this area for granted until I lived elsewhere, and then came back here and really realized what a treasure that we have here in Pensacola. And our real estate values, I feel like, really just don't reflect that yet. If you go, a little bit to the east, Destin and Seaside, the whole 30A area, the values of the real estate over there far exceed what you would pay here for the same type of beachfront property. Most anywhere on the East Coast or the West Coast, values are significantly higher than what you can find here. So I just really feel like we have this little slice of paradise, and it's been discovered. All the awards and so forth that we've gotten in the last couple of years. USA Today's, I think it was like #1 beach, or so there's all sorts of awards like that, and people are really starting to want to move here, and we're just seeing so many out-of-town buyers. So the outdoor experience, the downtown area obviously is incredible. You guys all live here. You guys all know this, but I think what's so cool about Pensacola is that we have, over in 30A and Seaside, they're trying to create these town centers to look like his historic type town, and we have that authenticity, we have that amazing story, yet we're 15 minutes away from the beach once the bridge is fixed. Hopefully that happens soon. The culture and the arts, obviously, and then the view. So this next page, this is kind of a fairly generic process on the road to home ownership. And so my thought was I would just kind of go through these steps, and then we have kind of our own 5-step process, and we'll go through those, and then take some time to answer any questions. Before we get started, Brad, are there any questions in the chat? I can't see it.
There was only one question from the beginning that Ebony posted, and that was, how long does the process typically take to buy a home that's already built?
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say before we get started? I know I've kind of been rambling. Maybe need to catch my breath for a second.
Feel free to use the chat, anyone, and if John's speaking, I will gladly interrupt him and get him to answer your questions.
All right. So you guys ready? Sure, you're ready? It's a long process. So typically from the time you have a contract to the closing date, that's 30 to 45 days. But it's oftentimes we're looking for a home, for months until we find the perfect one for our client. Before we go look at homes, we really encourage our clients to get pre-qualified. In this market, it's a seller's market right now, for those of you who don't know that, and that essentially means there's more buyers than there are homes. So it's fairly competitive if you are a buyer. We're seeing a lot of times a home is listed, and if it's priced right, if it's priced competitively and showcased well, you'll see multiple offers even that first day that it's listed. So we have different ways to make your offer more competitive, but one thing that almost all sellers are looking for is a pre-qualification letter. And basically that's a letter from your lender or from a bank saying that you are pre-approved for X amount. One thing that we like to do with our pre-qualification letters is, say your budget is $275,000. And so originally they would send you a pre-qualification letter that says you're approved up to $275,000. Well, if we're going to look at a home and it's $225,000, we will actually have the lender change that number on the pre-approval letter to 225,000, because we like to have every little advantage we can, and we feel like if a seller is looking at your pre-approval letter and they see that you're approved for 275,000, but you're only offering 225,000, they're probably going to be more likely to respond with a higher counter offer. Not all the time, but sometimes. So that's one thing we like to do with the pre-approvals. The pre-approval process is very easy. They'll probably just want to see a few bank statements or pay stubs. Once you actually have a contract on a home, that's when they'll really start digging into your finances. And I also wanted to specify that just because you're pre-approved through a certain lender or through a certain bank, you're not required to use that lender or that bank for your loan. You can use it with the offer because obviously, like I said, you need the letter. But then once you're under contract, that's a good opportunity to shop around for different with different lenders and see where you can get the best terms and the lowest rate. Any questions on that part?
I actually have one. How long is the pre-approval usually good for?
90 days, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Step 2, we look at homes. Typically, and we'll talk about this in our 5-step process, we try to hone in on a particular area, and we'll figure out, kind of what your wants and what your needs are, and we can actually set up a search. So say if you want, I see a kitty. Say if you want something between 1,500 and 2,000 square feet, that's at least 3 bedrooms, at least 2 bathrooms, that's in East Pensacola Heights or East Hill, we can set all that criteria so that anytime a home is listed or an existing home is on the market and the price changes, you are emailed that property, and we actually set up a kind of your own portal, your own website, where you have all these homes going to this website, and on a consistent basis, you'll be able to go in and reject the homes that you don't want. You can favorite the homes you like, or you can leave it undecided, and that really kind of helps us start to understand what you like and what you don't like. We do like to learn as much about that up front before we set you up kind of with that website, but at the same time, we don't like to make the search criteria too specific, because we don't want to miss anything that comes up that may be a good fit but just didn't quite fit your criteria. We also would encourage you to just look on your own. If you're driving through a neighborhood and see a sign pop up, or and Mick and I daily will check the what's called the hot sheet on the MLS, and just look at all the homes that were listed that day. And if we see something that's looks like a good fit for you, we'll do our best to reach out to you and tell you about that before it even goes to your collab center site. Just especially in this market, being a seller's market, it's important just to be diligent with that, because your perfect home may only be available for a day or a couple of days, and it could already be under contract by the time that you see it. And if we see something come up that looks like it's going to be a great fit, we'll do everything that we can to accommodate going and showing you that home that day, just because we really don't want you to miss it, if you're working, if you're unavailable, Mick or I could absolutely go to the home, FaceTime with you while you're at your office, or if you're out of town or whatever. We can go and make a walkthrough video and send that over to you. We don't want to miss out on the perfect home for you because we weren't able to get you in to see it, pretty quickly after it's listed, which is, like I said, is important in this market. The third step is evaluate the options. Mick and I try not to show more than 4-5 homes in a day to a particular client, because it seems like once you start looking at more than that, they all kind of start running together. But say we go out for an afternoon and we look at 5 homes, we can actually, I think it's likely that if you don't like the home, I find that most people can rule that out. Like as soon as they walk in the home, they just kind of know like that this it's not for me. Sometimes they can't even put their finger on like why. It's just they know it's this probably isn't the one for them. And then sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes they walk in and it just feels right. It just feels like home. And then sometimes you end up with a few that look like good prospects, and this is where we kind of evaluate the options on those potential homes that may be good options, and we'll kind of lay out all these things side by side so you can make the best decision as far as location, the current price, features, cost of ownership on each individual property, and your goals. And using that information, we can go ahead and make an offer. And in this market, kind of turning into a broken record talking about this market, but it is competitive, and there are strategies to make your offer more competitive. We're going to get into the earnest money deposit later, but one strategy for making your offer more competitive is to put down a higher amount of earnest money deposit. And essentially what the earnest money deposit is you're putting money down and it goes to the title company, which that's the company that does the closing. So a lot of attorneys in town are also title companies. There are also some title companies that are just title companies, but the earnest money deposit goes there, and the seller takes the property off of the market during the inspection contingency period and the financing contingency period while you go ahead and conduct your inspections. But like I was saying, the earnest money deposit, if you're able to put down a higher amount, it certainly makes your offer more attractive. Another thing is you kind of have to decide on price and terms. You're probably not going to pay the price you want to pay and have all of the terms the way that you want on the contract. So it's one of those things you kind of have to sacrifice one or the other. One strategy that's worked really well lately for Mick and I in multiple offer situations is we've been using an escalation clause, and that essentially is where if a home is listed for $200,000, it comes up, it's on the market for a day or two, that there's multiple other offers, 2, 3, 5 other offers that are going to be coming in according to the listing agent. You want to go ahead and submit your highest and best offer. So we'll encourage you to do that, but we can actually say, we'll offer full price, we'll offer $200,000, but then we'll put this escalation clause in that says we will go up to a certain amount, say 205,000, and we will beat any of the other offers by $1,000, but you have to show us redacted offer with the purchaser's information crossed out, showing that you did in fact get an offer for that amount. So we've won out on a number of multiple offer situations recently, just using that tactic, which has helped a lot. Another way to make your offer more attractive is cutting down the time of the inspection contingency period. And that's something that we'll get to inspections in number 10, but essentially on a standard Florida Realtors contract, you have a 15-day period once the contract is executed, which means once all parties have signed the contract and agreed to all the terms. From that day, you have a 15-day period to conduct all of your inspections. Typically, you have a repair limit in a contract, and the way that the standard contract reads is for general warranted repair items, you will have up to 1.5% of the purchase price to ask for repairs. Those aren't cosmetic type repairs like paint or things like that. Those are if the HVAC isn't functioning properly or there's electrical issues or plumbing issues. But oftentimes the seller, before you agree on the contract, they will cap that repair limit and say they'll cap it at $2,000. So you get your inspection back. If the number of warranted repairs were to exceed that $2,000, and you notify the seller's agent within that 15-day period, and they will not make those additional repairs, that is grounds to walk from the contract and get your earnest money deposit back. Another thing that you can do too is you can attach a right to inspect and cancel rider to your contract, which that means you can essentially walk from the contract for anything in the inspection that's not satisfactory to you. It doesn't have to be warranted repairs. It could be anything, but that makes the offer significantly less attractive. So in a multiple offer situation, we definitely would not recommend that, or even if it's just a competitive listing, we wouldn't recommend that. But that is a form of kind of it's kind of like insurance to walk from the deal, but that's not not what we want, certainly. Any questions up to this point?
We do have two questions in the chat, and one was from Mike, and it was, are you seeing any difficulty with making FHA buyers competitive next to conventional buyers due to the seller requirements that come with FHA loans?
Yes, FHA loans they're more rigorous as far as the requirements of the home in order to pass an FHA inspection. If the home has fogged windows, if the roof is older, if the wiring is older, it makes it very difficult with FHA. Conventional is much easier, but I understand that with FHA, oftentimes you're able to get a better rate and maybe some down payment assistance. So if you're going to go the FHA route, I would recommend looking at newer, not necessarily new construction, but a newer construction home. A lot of the homes in East Hill and East Pensacola Heights are older homes. Certainly there is some new construction mixed in, but it's challenging having an FHA loan pass on an older home that's not that hasn't been renovated.
Gotcha. And we had one more question. It was sent to me privately. It says, since it is a seller market, do you have to live in the first home you buy, or are you allowed to start making money off of it and rent it immediately? Or is there a certain amount of time that you should live in it before you rent it?
It depends if you're using that as a primary home. And then, a lot of people around here, they'll have a home, but then maybe they have a little mother-in-law cottage or something in the back, and they'll rent, Airbnb that or rent that. That's no problem. A lot of you guys I know probably have roommates and stuff, and it's no problem, renting out a couple bedrooms. If it's a 3-bedroom, renting out 2 bedrooms. That's actually what Mick has done, and he's had a lot of success with that. He's essentially has 2 of his friends cover his mortgage payment each month. Did that answer the question?
I think it did.
So I think I actually bought a home last year. And depending on the loan, like most FHA loans, you have to live in the home and you can't make any gains on it. So you can't rent it out or anything for a certain period if you get like any kind of down payment assistance or anything like that.
I think that's for a period of I think that's probably a period of 5 years. Does that sound
yeah.
right?
And it's different for all of them. I think the one that I was looking at initially was only 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how strict that is. The lender that I was working with initially said, that's a rule that they put in place. But if you have tenants that it's someone you trust, or, there are ways around those rules. But the living in it for a certain amount of time depends on the type of loan.
Yeah. And, we'll get into some of the first time home. I know there were questions about some of the first time home buyer programs. There are 2 here locally that I'm aware of, and there are restrictions on living in the home for a certain period of time on those as well. But we'll get into that. Let's see, we're on number 5, which is negotiate. There's a good chance that the initial offer, they're not going to agree to all of the terms or the price on that offer. So what they'll do is they'll come back with a counter offer, which essentially is they're saying, we agree to all of these things, but these are the items that we do not agree to. So on the contract, they'll actually cross out those items, whether it's price or specific terms, and write in what is acceptable to them. They will then initial it, and when they send back the offer, there's a little box at the bottom of the contract where it says seller counters buyer offer. To accept the terms, the buyer must initial those same terms and then sign the contract. So there are times when that goes back and forth a few different times. What Mick and I can do is for each offer and counter offer, we can help you determine the amount of cash you would be bringing to closing, so you can really figure out how each counter offer is going to affect you financially. Next step is assuming that you went out on that offer, the offer is accepted, and from then there's quite a few things that need to happen in the next 30 days before we make it to closing. And really our goal is to make the transaction as smooth and seamless as possible. It's pretty often to encounter different obstacles throughout this process, but we just do our best to try to kind of set those expectations up front, and then when we do kind of hit those speed bumps, we do our best to help you get through those, and because most of them we've encountered before. And the first thing, which we talked about, the escrow deposit, which is also known as the earnest money deposit, typically you have to get that to the title company within 3 days from the effective date, which the effective date, that's the date that all parties have signed the contract and you have an executed contract. So you can either take a check to the title company, drop the check off. We can have the title company send you wiring instructions, and you can just wire that earnest money deposit from your bank to the title company. There has been a lot of wire fraud lately, so we make sure up front we tell all of our clients to, if you get an email with wiring instructions but you haven't heard from us or you haven't heard from the title company, don't wire that money. Wait till wait, make sure that we tell you it's okay. We've seen a lot of people in the business have seen a lot of wire fraud lately, so something we want to be really careful about. Number 8 is deadlines. The first big deadline is probably that inspection contingency period. So typically that's 15 days from the effective date that you have to conduct all of your inspections. Also, within 5 days from the effective date, you have to go ahead and make your loan application. That is getting all that information to your lender that they need to send to the underwriters that will make sure that you're approved for that loan. Also, in that time period, we can shop around for other loans too. We'll want to start looking at insurance. That's something that we're going to get into a little bit later, but immediately after you go under contract, kind of the first things that we start working on are inspections, home inspection, which typically runs around $500, more or less, considering how big the home is. With the home inspection, you'll also get a 4-point inspection and a wind mitigation inspection, and those are documents that your homeowner's insurance agent will need in order to write you a homeowner's insurance policy. Also, during that 15-day inspection period, we'll want to do a WDO inspection. And that typically runs about $125 to $150, and that's where we have a WDO company come out and they're looking for wood destroying organisms like termites, and making sure that that's not an issue. And they're also looking for wood rot. Let's see. So that was deadlines. Now we're on title. So I keep talking about the title company, and that's actually the attorney's office or the title company that's going to be looking at the title of your property and checking that to make sure that ownership can convey to the new owner without any issues. So they're looking to see if there's any liens on the property, anything like that. The title company will also look at the survey to make sure there aren't any encroachments on the property. survey is, I guess we're going to get to that. I'll go ahead and do that real quick since it kind of goes hand in hand with title. But a survey typically costs $500 more or less, depending on the size of the property, and it's good typically for 10 years or so until something changes on the property, like a fence line or porch or anything like that. Then you'll need to order a new survey. But what's nice is a lot of times the seller will have an existing survey, and if the seller has an existing survey, first off, that's something we check on to see. And if we can get that survey and save you $500, we will certainly do that. Kind of talked about home insurance. That's where I was saying they need the 4-point inspection and the wind mitigation inspection that the home inspector will do when he comes out to do the home inspection. And that's something that we can shop around to, or shop around for a bit, kind of like the loan, and figure out where we can find the best policy. And you're looking at your yearly premium, but then it's also important to look at the deductible and how much you'll have to come out of pocket for in the event of a storm or just in a occurrence, if a tree falls on the home, or heaven forbid, like a fire or anything like that. We talked about the survey. The appraisal is actually ordered by the lender. The buyer is not allowed to pick the appraiser. It has to be chosen. The way the lender does it is they have a number of appraisers and they pick them randomly. And the home has to appraise at the amount or above the amount of the purchase price in order for the lender to provide that loan. So if the appraisal came in low, essentially the seller has the option of making up the difference on that, or the seller could walk away from the deal if they did not want to do that. It's pretty rare in this market to have appraisals come in low, but it does happen occasionally. It seems like it has happened more on VA loans and on FHA loans than conventional loans. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but that's not something that we encounter too much, is having a low appraisal. Number 14 is the loan commitment. Once you have all your documentation to the lender, once they have the appraisal, they'll go ahead and commit to that loan. And they'll give you what's called a clear to close. And that's when we can go ahead and schedule the closing. Sometimes, if we back up a step on the appraisal, they'll give certain conditions on the appraisal, which essentially are saying the home will appraise, but these particular items need to be repaired or replaced. So you'll have a little bit of time to figure out how to take care of that. And that's before the loan commitment. So the loan commitment, that's essentially a clear to close. The walkthrough happens before closing, and that's typically once the seller has moved out of the home, and it's before closing, so before the buyer takes possession of the home. But just to walk through, and so it's kind of the last opportunity to make sure everything looks the way that it should before closing and before you take possession of the home. Transfer utilities, obviously that, kind of speaks for itself. You'll want to have all of the utilities transferred over into your name, and we have a list of phone numbers and service providers depending on where the home is, and we can help you with that. Closing typically takes place at the title company. If you're getting a loan on the property, there's a lot more paperwork than if you're paying cash. You will see what's called a HUD statement or an ALTA. The lender is required to send that out 3 days before closing, so you'll know exactly what you're going to be paying, and all the line items will be itemized, so you get to see what money is going where. And if I'll look it over when we get that statement, and then answer any questions you have. If there's any mistakes, that's we do our best to catch those before closing. And then you get the keys and you can move in, and then we have a party. So I'll go through kind of our 5 steps also, but this is just that was just kind of a rough look at to me what the bullet points are of the process. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions on that? We may be out of time.
Feel free to speak up, anyone, if you have any questions.
Please. No? Is this helpful?
This was definitely helpful, and now I feel like I don't know if I want to buy a home now.
You don't know?
Don't know if I want to buy one now. It's a long process. Oh wait.
Well, that's what we're here for, to make it simple and seamless.
All right. Yes, Chris Neal, we do have a PDF. Let me see if it works.
And before we go to this next page, I want to apologize because our 5-step process only includes 4 steps on this document. So I'll just have to tell you about the 5th step. But this is kind of what we do when we're working with a new buyer. The first, number 1, is the questionnaire. This is where we get to know you better. We like to know why you're buying, what your goals and desires are in the present and the future, and establish what we will aim to accomplish together. So this is where we kind of find out, what you're looking for in a home: bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage. Do you need a garage? Is it important to have a big yard? Do you need room for a dog? Do you, is 2 stories okay? Or are you set on 1 story? It's where we, kind of try to figure those things out. And then, we really like to know kind of what your goals and dreams are for the future. Mick and I kind of see ourselves as, we like to get you from where you're at to where you want to be. And that's the best part of our job. Number 2 is the neighborhood overview. I say this step is for those of you who are not familiar with the greater Pensacola area or would like a more detailed breakdown of specific neighborhoods and submarkets. Obviously, all you guys are familiar with the greater Pensacola area, but what you may not be familiar with is real estate values in the different submarkets and kind of pros and cons of different submarkets where, in a particular area, you may be looking to pay more in flood insurance because it's an area that's historically has flooded. Areas where we like to look at price per square foot a lot, which basically tells you how much house you can get for the dollar. So for some people, location is much more, but then for some people, you know, they don't mind being further from downtown in order to have more square footage and pay less. So, you know, we can go through the specific markets, market by market, especially once, you know, we'll kind of know what your price range is, and find an area that's suitable for you. The next step is the custom communication plan. Good communication is imperative throughout the process of finding your new home, and we want to make sure we're communicating as effectively as possible. We'll gather your preferred times and methods of communication to best meet your needs. And so that's basically just if you prefer calls, if you prefer text, morning, evening, you know, when can you get out and tour properties? You know, we just want to be as efficient and as effective as we can. We've already kind of talked about home tours. We say this is where the fun begins, physically or virtually touring your possible future home. With the current fast-paced market, it's crucial to be ready when the right home becomes available. For this reason, we make it a priority to be available to show homes at your convenience in a way that best suits your needs. This includes FaceTime showings, high-quality walkthrough videos, or in-person showings. Number 5, which isn't on here, is diplomacy, and we just really strive to work with a high level of professionalism, and just make sure that we do everything in our power to make the process as smooth and seamless as possible. And you know, if we know that whoever decides to use us as their realtor, you know, there's so many other realtors to choose from, and so we're just grateful for the opportunity to work with you, and we just don't, you know, we it's a huge responsibility, and we don't take it lightly, and we're just appreciative. So turn the page. Some of you ask questions about, you know, what to look for in a buyer's agent. Some of those things are outlined here. I guess this would be a good point to ask if there are any other questions in the chat. And if not, we can take a few minutes and answer some of the questions that were sent in. Before we do that, I just want to say that if we end up not being able to answer your specific question, please feel free to reach out to Mick or I anytime, and we'll be glad to do our best to answer your questions. And are there other questions in the chat now?
There is a question from Mike. Do you see a market crash coming anytime soon once these moratoriums are lifted on evictions and foreclosures?
It's so hard to predict. I mean, I think that, you know, from what the experts are saying, the market fundamentals are much stronger than they were in 2008 when there was a market crash. Do I think there will be a market correction? Absolutely, at some point. A crash, I you know, I don't know. I don't believe so, but you know, I'm not an economist or an expert in that field. I hope that we're fairly insulated because of the development projects that are in the works here, and just having such a high demand for homes and property here, with people wanting to come here from all over the United States. So I don't think so, but the answer is, I don't know.
Gotcha. We have no other questions unless anyone has a question and they want to speak up.
One of the questions that you sent over, Brad, was regarding first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And Mick has some resources for some of the programs offered locally for first-time home buyers. Mick, you wanna talk about that?
Yeah. There's two programs offered locally. One's offered by Escambia County, and you can find it at escambiahfa.com. And it's a bond loan, which is just some government assistance if you qualify for your down payment and closing costs. And I really don't know too much about that, but I know where the information is. And there's also SHIP, which is State Housing Initiative Program. I have a friend who just did that, and they have an awesome brand new house over in Cantonment, and you can find that at cityofpensacola.com. I'll throw these in here in the chat in a sec. And that's kind of the same thing. And you can receive up to $7,500 towards your down payment and closing costs. And it's just in the form of a grant. And those are two awesome programs. Whenever I bought my home, I know I had a conventional loan, but I don't think I put anything down. So I may have, and that's another thing that your lender will help you with a lot too, is that, and I feel bad because John went through all those steps, which when you look at them written down, it's a lot and it's boring. But when you're doing it, when you're going through the process of buying a home, it is fun. We deal with the boring stuff. The lenders deal with the boring stuff. You have the excitement of looking forward to your new home and what are you going to put in it and all that. We get to deal with the boring stuff. So I'll put those sites in here, and those are great options. But your lender, when you get set up with the lender, will be able to answer a lot of those. And I know there were some questions that we had gotten beforehand, and one of them was where to get started and what to look for in an agent. And one thing I would say is where to get started is, this is a great place to get started, but just talk to agents, ask your friends about like who they use, who they enjoyed working with, and then ask them some questions, kind of interview them, ask them if they're part-time or full-time. One thing I like to think about is if I was going to the dentist or the doctor or something, I would not go if the dentist did it part-time. I think that a part-time agent, it's great, but if you need to call them and get something done, you're gonna appreciate a full-time agent who's got your best intentions in mind and available for you. So just kind of vet your options and do what you're doing right now is just kind of looking and getting out there and talking to other agents. I don't know if I have a list. You have some of those other questions, John?
Yeah, I have them all here. How are we doing on time, Brad?
I say let's pick one good question off that sheet and then we can end this. We're on the, we got time for one question.
Okay. Let's see.
I see one in the chat, and quickly answer that one. Yes.
What's the question?
Does getting a pre-qual letter affect credit score or anything? No, from what I've heard, it doesn't affect your credit score unless you keep pulling your credit score on all kinds of apps and things. Does it affect your credit score or anything? Benefit to getting one to see where you're at? No, if you're not considering buying for the next couple of months / year. I wouldn't say that's a bad idea. What about you, John?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to kind of see where you're at. Or you could just, if you're going to do that, you might as well just go ahead and talk with the lender and see if you can, if you're able to get pre-approved. We have a list of lenders that are good that we like to work with on a regular basis. So if you're considering considering that, let us know, and we'll put you in touch with those lenders. If you have questions for us, or kind of wanted to interview us, we're more than happy to get together with you anytime for a phone call, a Zoom call, or a cup of coffee. And yeah, guys, I just appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and yeah, thanks for taking the time on a cold Wednesday morning.
Well, thank you to the Shell Group for being here. And thank you, Mick, for catching that last question. It completely did not pop up on my screen. So thank you for catching that. Again, if any of y'all have any last minute questions, or if any of y'all have any questions, you are more than welcome to email them and get more information from them. And heck, if you want to go buy a house, go get the Shell Group to find you a home. That's what they're here to do.
That'd be awesome. Our contact information is on the very back of this document. 572-0488 is my number. 889-6053 is Mick's number, and hello@shellgroup.co is our email. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well. Our new website should be live today. So this buyer's guide you can also find on our website. But yeah, thanks guys.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we will have this recorded and put on our YouTube probably in the next few days. So thank you for joining us, and y'all have an awesome day at work.
All right, will do. See ya.